in your house which is echoing, or another phone in your house?
Oh, just check if I am put it
No,
on.
you're logged in through Sneha Kulkarni and Sumit Kulkarni both. So I think one of them.
No, I think it's your mom's phone.
It's possible because she's in another room, but we'll go and check.
It's okay.
Just leave it. Okay. Thank you for joining us for what promises to be a wonderful program. A lot of people have put in a great amount of effort in order to make it a success. And hopefully with divine grace, we will have a smooth program. Some housekeeping, please mute your microphones unless you are the nominated speaker. Once we are on the quiz, we can come on to the video as well. Also, if you haven't got a copy of the Bhagavad Gita and an Aarti lamp ready, can you please get it ready for later on? We will have a Gita Aarti as well. So moving on, as is the tradition with all functions, we begin with an invocation to Lord Ganesha, Vignaharta, and I request Jamuna ji from Nottingham to sing the Ganesh Mandana. Jamuna ji is a consultant in child psychiatry in Leicester and is Professor Madhusudan's better half. So over to Jamuna.
Thank you, Shushru. वातापि गणपतिं भजे हम वातापि गणपतिं भजे हम वातापि गणपतिं भजे हम वारणा शंवरप्रदं श्रीवारणा शंवरप्रदं श्रीवातापि गणपतिं भजे भूतादिसं सेवितचरणं भूतादिसं सेवितचरणं भूतभौतिकप्रपञ्चभरणं भूतभौतिकप्रपञ्चभरणं वीतरागिणं विनुतयोगिनं वीतरागिणं विनुतयोगिनं विश्वकारणं विघ्नवारणं वीतरागिणं विनुतयोगिनं विश्वकारणं विघ्नवारणं वातापि गणपतिं भजे हम वारणा शंवरप्रदं श्रीवातापि गणपतिं भजे पुरा कुम्भसम्भव मुनि वर प्रपूजितं त्रिभुवनमध्यगतं मुरारि प्रमुखाद्युपासितं मूलाधारा क्षेत्र स्थितं परादि चत्वारि वागात्मकं प्रणवस्वरूप वक्रतुण्डं निरन्तरं निखिलचन्द्रखण्डं निजवामकरविधृतेक्षु दन्तं कराम्बुजपाशबीजापूरं कलुषविदूरं भूताकारम् अनादिगुरुगुहतोषितबिम्बं हंसध्वनिभूषितहेरम्बम् अनादिगुरुगुहतोषितबिम्बं हंसध्वनिभूषितहेरम्बं वातापि गणपतिं भजे हम वारणा शंवरप्रदं श्रीवातापि गणपतिं भजे हम वातापि Shri Ganesha, Hare Krishna. Over back to you, Shushu. Thank you.
Well, that was wonderful, Jamuna. Such a nice song, and you explained all the meanings very nicely. Thank you so much. It's often asked who should read the Bhagavad Gita. As you can see from the slide, you're never too young or too old, too ignorant or too learned, too rich or too poor, too weak or too strong, too haughty or too humble. In short, nobody is excluded from reading the Gita. We should all make an effort to find at least something in the Gita that is applicable to our own lives. I now request Suresh Kankanwadi ji from London to tell us the significance of Gita Jayanti. Suresh is a good friend of mine, and he is the head of R&D for Reddy's in Switzerland. So over to you, Suresh.
Thanks, Shashat. I hope you can hear me well. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudirayet. Friends, as we all know, that it was on the Shukla Ekadashi of the Margashirsha month. Shashat, on the next slide, if we could look at it, which was in fact a couple days ago on the 25th. It was on this date that Lord Krishna, using Arjuna as an instrument, provided a practical guide to the entire humanity. In that, all of us being fortunate to be born in this human form with a sadhana sharira, as to how we go about dealing with the samsara, is the guide, Bhagavad Gita. As Acharya Madhva says, Vasudevarjuna Samvada Rupam Bharata Parijata Madhubhutam Gita Mupanibandha Bharatam Shastreshu Bharate Gitika Vara Vishnu Sahasranamapi Jneyam Pathyam Chatadvayam. Bhagavad Gita is the essence, is the honey extracted from the flower of Mahabharata. And Mahabharata itself is the essence of the entire Shastras. And it is for us to both know and study both the Bhagavad Gita and the Vishnu Sahasranama. Now, if one asks the questions as to how does one know, how does one know and go about studying the Bhagavad Gita, the answer for this comes from within the Shastras itself. And as is said in Chandogya Upanishad, Yadeva Vidyaya Karoti, Shraddhayo Upanishada, Tadeva Viryavattaram Bhavatiti. Vidya and Shraddha become the two pillars for us to understand, know, and get further into it, which rests on the foundations of the Prasthanatrayas. Using the principles described in Brahma Sutra from interpretation of the Vedic scriptures, knowing the Upanishads, getting into Bhagavad Gita and understanding it becomes extremely important. And as Madhuji often reminds us, it's important not to be carried away with just literal translations or partial representations. And as we move on to the next slide, if one looks deeper into Bhagavad Gita, what does one see? We see that the Gita starts with the question of a blind man and someone who chose to remain blind. This is a question I think all of us can ask of ourselves as well in various life situations. The Kauravas and the Pandavas depicted there are not necessarily outside of us. We can even, we will be easily able to know the Kauravas and Pandavas within us as well. And this is an instrument for us a practical guide as to go about dealing with these Kauravas and Pandavas. In short, Bhagavad Gita is the philosophical essence and the quintessence, the essence of Gita perhaps are the last 5 shlokas of chapter 15 that we are eagerly still awaiting at the dawn of next year to learn, which of course is the essence of the Upanishads, of the Bharata, of the Pancharatras, of the entire Vedas themselves. Vishnu Sahasranama is the spiritual essence of the Mahabharata. And if we want to know the historical context, we perhaps have to refer to Bharata itself. That seems too much. And the question that obviously comes is, how much can we know? And then what's the minimum? Answer which has been so aptly provided by Acharya Shankara when he says, Bhagavad Gita kinchidadhita Ganga jalalava kanika pita sukrudapi ena murari samarcha kriyate tasya yamena na charcha. It is possible to avoid interrogation with Lord Yama should we study even a little bit of Bhagavad Gita in its right essence, drink a drop of Ganga and, worship and pray Lord Murari at least once. And that's because, as Sanjay has so aptly summarized and concluded in Gita itself, Yatra Yogeshwaraha Krishnaha, Yatra Partho Dhanurdaraha, Tatra Sri Vijayo Bhutihi, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. Where there is Lord Krishna, where there is a student, devotee, friend like Arjuna, completeness is assured, be it in terms of progress, be it in terms of wisdom, and be it in terms of victory. We all know that modern day science has this habit of coming back or reinventing Shvetaketu movements time and again. Newtonian physics, Cartesian worldview, turned a paradigm, made a paradigm shift in the understanding of science. And that is now proving woefully inadequate. I was quite surprised to read that the modern day definition of a substance is but a notion at the macroscopic level. If you go deeper, it is nothing but non-material energy. And that, in fact, has led to one of the theoretical physicists to actually say in one of the books that science does not deal with the truth. Theory of relativity talks about the intrinsically dynamic nature of cosmic web, in that it says that its very activity is the essence of its being. In fact, quantum theory goes even further to say that subatomic matter are not isolated grains, subatomic particles are not isolated grains of matter. In fact, they are a probability pattern of interconnectedness, inseparable from the observer and his or her consciousness. And if this ultimately leads to consciousness, where better to look at than where tens and thousands of years of research, systematic research into consciousness has taken place, be it at the Adibhuta level, at the Adiyajna level, at the Adidaiva level, or the Adiyatma level, into our Shastras. And Gita is the very essence of all of these Shastras, and thus the Gita Jayanti. Krishna Arpanamastu. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Suresh. Excellent talk. It gives me great pleasure to now ask Professor Madhusudan to introduce our plenary speaker for the day. But before we give him the stage, let me introduce Professor Madhusudan to the people who are joining us for the very first time. In his day-to-day life, he is the professor of oncology in the University of Nottingham with well over 100 publications to his name. For us, he is our guru in the Sahiti group. And in This Rupa, he has been our Sarathi in our spiritual journey for the last 9 months. A big thank you from all of us in Sahiti. Over to you, Professor Madhusudan.
Hare Krishna, everyone. So Shushrut, many thanks for those very kind words, which I'm sure I am not worthy of, but I'll accept this with grace. Thank you very much for your kind words. So friends, it's my privilege and my honor to introduce you today, the plenary speaker for today's session. Shushrut, can I have the next slide, please? So today's plenary speaker, his name is Tambraparani Subbachar Raghavendran, and we all fondly call him as TSR. He is an advocate and a Vedanta philosopher from Coimbatore, and he has been my source of inspiration and my teacher for well over 25 years. Again, there is not a day that goes without me referring to one of his books or listening to him in person every weekend, which, as you all know, some of us have been doing for several months. Shushrut, can I have the next slide, please? So TSR, Shushrut, can I have the next slide?
Yeah.
So TSR, before we get into the main talk from TSR, I just want to give you a brief biography of who the man is. So TSR hails from a family of Vedic scholars and from a city, Coimbatore, in South India, in the state of Tamil Nadu, that has produced giants of Vedantic philosophy. Some of you may have heard of this name, C.M. Padmanabhachar. Now, this goes well before pre-independence period. C.M. Padmanabhachar was the first to come up with a comprehensive English translation of Bhagavad Gita for the consumption of the world. It is an amazing text that gives in detail the comparative studies between Dvaita, Visishta Dvaita, and Advaita and other schools of philosophy, and puts forward a comprehensive view of philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. The same city gave us this Maha Upadhyay, Professor B.N. Krishnamurti Sharma. Some of you who are in the field of Vedic literature would know this great man whose contribution to Vedanta and Dvaita Vedanta is unsurpassed. Many of his works are masterpieces in their own right. The third pillar that has come out from Coimbatore is D.V. Subbachar, another great Sanskrit scholar. And it's perhaps not a surprise that Subbachar is the father of our speaker today, TSR. Now, TSR has learned from Subbachar from childhood, his father, who has been his mentor for the study of Vedanta. And we could confidently now include TSR as the fourth pillar that has come out from Coimbatore. So who is TSR? From a mundane perspective, he did his MA Mathematics in Trichy, and not surprisingly got his first rank in the university. He moved into a career to do law, and not surprisingly, he got the first rank in the University of Madras. Then he was admitted into the state bar examination. Again, not surprisingly, a gold medalist. Some of his records in law still they have not been beaten. They still stand in the University of Madras. So following his education, he takes up a career in income tax law and has been a top income tax lawyer in his heydays. He has been a legal advisor to big corporations, banks, etc. So friends, what I wanted to impress, particularly on the youngsters who are joined us today, is TSR's achievement, not only in academic and professional platform, but his ongoing achievements in Vedanta is even more inspiring. I am just spellbound when I look at his achievements in the Vedanta spheres. So Shushrut, can I have the next slide, please? So the next slide essentially gives a tour de force, a bird's eye view, a snapshot of the great achievements of this scholar. Although he being a great person in himself, what always strikes me is his humility and with readiness in which he is enthusiastic to teach his students. And in fact, he has always said, serving God through knowledge or Gyan Seva is my mission. That's what he's always said. And again, perhaps not surprisingly, look at the Limca Book of World Records of 2013. His name is entered into the Limca Book of World Records as a person, a scholar who has written the maximum number of books on Dvaita Vedanta. In 2014, India Book of Records names him again as a person who has contributed maximum number of books to propagate Vedanta and Dvaita Vedanta. He is 80 plus now, but still very active. He has written about 291 books in English, and he's still counting. And he cannot stop saying, this book is coming and that book is coming. The enthusiasm of the man is quite surprising and shocking. So 291 books in English. So one of the questions that we normally get during our Sunday Sahiti discussions is stating that many of our core scriptures are in Sanskrit. Accessibility to Sanskrit is limited. How are we supposed to, get into the depths of philosophy in our Shastras? And I want to remind people there is no dearth of literature in English that is available to people who feel learning Sanskrit is difficult. And look at TSR's book. There are 291 books in English dealing with every aspect of Prasthana Trayas that Sureshji was talking about. For those who may be interested, you could go to jnanasampat.in where you can find his books. And if you want to order these books, you can place those orders online or get in touch with some of his students who are based in England and in the US, and we might be able to facilitate access those books for your contemplation. So this is a lifelong of work starting from youth to 80 plus. And look at the awards, the recognitions that TSR has had in his as a mark of appreciation to his dedication to disseminate Vedic knowledge. Many of the major maths in India, many of the major Vedantic mathas have basically stood in queue to give him the award. And I just want to pick two from Vishwesha Tirtha Swamiji. And many of you may be aware, Vishwesha Tirtha, who passed away recently, but he was a great social reformer in Karnataka. Besides being a Vedantic giant, he was a great social reformer. He confers the title Madhva Bhushanam to TSR. Satyatma Tirtha, who is again a giant of Vedantic philosophy of Uttaradi Mat, again confers him Madhva Mata Ratna, the diamond, the star of the Dvaita philosophy. So his list of achievements continues, and we all pray God that he gives him a long and a productive life and career so that we can extract all the knowledge that TSR has to share with us. So with that note, I want to go to his talk. I very much wish that TSR would be here in person to deliver the speech, but his lifestyle is quite different from mine. He wakes up at 3:30 in the morning, spends 2 to 3 hours doing his writing, then his studies, and then his mundane activities, and then he goes to bed at 7 o'clock in the evening. So he was not literally able to join us today, but he has sent a recorded message for today's occasion. And Shushruta, I would be very grateful if you could take on the stage from here. So thank you very much for listening. And we are really in for a treat. And let's take the key essence of Bhagavad Gita as said by TSR to us today. Thank you, Shushruta.
Kalyanadbhutagatraya Kamitartha Pradayine Srimad Venkatanathaya Srinivasaya Te Namaha. Devam Narayanam Natva Sarvadosha Vivarjitam Paripurnam Gurunshan Gitaartham Vakshyami Lesataha Krishnavatarat Purvam Yaschakre Vyasaha Sriyapatihi Bharatam Tatra Gitam Cha Tam Vande Matva Vallabham. This Bhagavad Gita, World Magna Carta, was preached by Lord Krishna exactly on the Ekadashi day, that is on the 25th of this month, about 5,000 years back. This Bhagavad Gita is only a part of Mahabharata. Mahabharata consists of 18 chapters. It is called a Parva, and the 6th Parva is called Bhishma Parva. And in this Adhyayas 24 to 41 is exactly this Bhagavad Gita. It is the essence of Mahabharata. It is told, Mahabharata Parjata Madhubhutam Geetam Upanibabanda. That means when you see a mango tree, you see the tree is very sweet. We don't eat the branches or wood or anything like that. We mean the fruit. Like that, this Mahabharata, the essence is Marubhuta, essence is Bhagavad Gita. This Bhagavad Gita consists of 700 poems or verses, or in Sanskrit it is called sloka. It is going like this. One sloka is uttered by the old king, blind king, Dhritarashtra, and 41 by Sanjaya. He is the charioteer for Dhritarashtra's father, and 81 slokas by Arjuna, and 574 by Lord Krishna. Therefore, once, in order to understand the merit of Bhagavad Gita, once a small dispute arose among the Devatas whether the points and the glory of Lord, our Creator, is more in Vedas or in Mahabharata. Therefore, one section told, it's all, they have no doubt, only to help us they have done like this. Therefore, one section told Vedas are infinite, Ananta. Therefore, it is unlimited. Therefore, the Mahimas of Lord and also the Dharma, etc. should be more in Vedas. And Mahabharata is 60 lakhs granthas. One grantha means 32 letters, out of which we have only 1 lakh granthas available now. Another 59 lakhs we don't have. Therefore, after all, even if you take that 60 lakhs, it is too much small compared to infinity. Therefore, Vedas are superior. They are contended. Then Lord Vedavyasa Bhagavan came on the scene and called Chaturmukha Brahma and asked him to bring 2 diamond balls. And in one ball, the entire, because Chaturmukha Brahma knows about the infinite, whereas the glories of the Lord, the Mahimas of the Lord, are extraordinary Mahimas of the Lord, our Creator, Sriman Narayana. You know everything in that way, infinite Vedas. You concentrate, you bring it, that is called Avahana. You bring it in this first diamond ball. Then in the other, the 60 lakhs of granthas in Mahabharata is there. Those Mahimas have been condensed, Avahana, done in the other diamond ball. It was kept in a balance. Then what happened was, under 2 separate dishes, the diamond ball containing the Mahimas as expounded in Mahabharata went down. Mahatvad Bharavatvacha Mahabharatam Uchyate. Therefore, the meaning Bharata has come out of this. What I have told now, you can find in detail in Brahmanda Purana about this, Mahima of Mahabharata. Why I am reciting this? Because if you understand this, what are all the papas, that is, sins we have committed, defaults we have committed up to now, he is totally redeemed. He is totally washed out. Niruktamasya yoveda sarvapapaihi pramuchyate. A man who understands that the Mahimas in Bhagavad Gita is much more than the infinite Vedas, if he understands, then all the sins committed hitherto by him are washed out. That is the Pala has been told. With that initial introduction, I am coming to Gita. Gita, you see the first sloka, Dharmakshetre Kurukshetre Samveda Yutsavaha. That is what Dhritarashtra says and asks his charioteer Sanjaya. There may be a doubt as to this sloka has been uttered on the opening day of the war. You know, the war took place for 18 days. It is not a war because, I'm sorry to tell you, many have written, kindly excuse me for that. It is not a war for property. It is not a war for name or fame. It is not a war between paternal cousins. It is a war between dharma and adharma. It is a war between justice and injustice. Therefore, when Dhritarashtra asked, I know that my sons and also Pandavas came together and they were ready to fight in Kurukshetra. What happened, Arjuna kindly, Sanjaya kindly narrate. It may appear as though he is, the king is asking on the first day before the commencement of the war. It is not like that. It is actually on the 11th day morning, because 10th day wars, 10th day Bhishmacharya fell down. When up to Bhishmacharya's life, Dhritarashtra had a chance that his sons may win the war, because Bhishmacharya had taken a pledge that he will eliminate minimum 10,000 great warriors on the other side every day. When Bhishmacharya fell down, this Dhritarashtra, and that the news was communicated to him, Dhritarashtra became totally funky. Kindly tell me, narrate what happened from the beginning. Therefore, this is what he asked. Then Bhagavad Gita starts. There are many granthas bringing the glory of Bhagavad Gita itself. Let me satisfy with two quotations from leading foreign scholars, Germany and other places. Mascaro says, he says, Gita is not a mere revered book for the Hindus. It is also a book for universal wisdom. The Gita is applicable for all the humanity in general. He may belong to any place. It is not confined to India alone. He says, Mascaro says, Gita is not a mere revered book for the Hindus, but it is a book for the universal wisdom. Another great critic, William Humboldt, is a German critic and a very great philosopher. He told, Gita is the most beautiful, philosophical, the only true philosophical song existing in any language in the world. That is what his observation after going through the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. I will be dealing with only one aspect of the teaching, and these 18 adhyayas, how are chapters, how they are, we have to have a brief view. The first 6 chapters is called Prathama Shatka. In Sanskrit, Shatka means 6. The first 6 chapters deal with Nishkama Karma Yoga. If this Nishkama Karma Yoga is understood, we will be doing very efficient work. We will be doing our duty. What is meant by Nishkama Karma, I will also explain in a brief way. The first Nishkama Karma is the first step for us to have emancipation, salvation from this mundane life. Therefore, first step, first 6 chapters. 7 to 12 deal with the Mahimas of the Lord, Mahimas of our Creator. 7th chapter is called Jnana Vijnana Yoga. 8th is called Akshara Brahma Yoga. 9th is called Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga. And 10th is Vibhuti. 11th is Vishwarupa. And 12th is Bhakti. Then the third Tritiya Shatka, that is the last 6 chapters, 13 to 18, Praguktasya Prapanjanam. What has been told in the 12 chapters earlier, for that the ramification or the enunciation or the description has been, elaboration has been made from the 13th chapter to 18th chapter. And in that, with regard to the first 6 chapters, I will be dealing within the limited time only with one concept. Kindly understand, Gita's second Adhyaya is the most important one. That is called Jnana Vijnana Yoga. The Sankhya Yoga, it has nothing to do with the Sankhya school of philosophy. Sankhya means Jnanam. Yoga means Upaya, how to attain, means for attaining knowledge. Therefore, in that the 12, 13 and 14, if we understand one sloka in Bhagavad Gita, namely 2:14, we have understood the entire Bhagavad Gita, I can say. There, Arjuna came with all the bow, arrows, etc., and ready to fight. But when he saw on the other side, and this side, his own people, on the other side, his paternal cousins, and Bhishmacharya, Dronacharya, Kripacharya, and others, he said to Krishna, let me retire to forest and meditate. I don't want to have this fight, etc. Then Krishna asks him, suppose if you are going to fight and one or two persons are killed there, do you mean to say that the stone is destroyed? Jat first Natvevaham, 2:12. Kindly see. If we understand this one concept, I think in the modern world or any world, there won't be any fight at all. If we understand these 3 slokas in Bhagavad Gita in our life, there won't be any pride or prejudice or anything, any injustice or any corruption. Nothing will happen. We will have a true life, etc. Therefore, when you say, Krishna says, when you kill the man on the other side, Arjuna, do you mean to say that the soul is destroyed? Kindly understand that the soul and the body are different. I will give you a small example. Suppose if you take a wire, current is passing. You don't see the current there. You see the wire. The body is like wire and current is the soul, the spirit. Therefore, this soul is different and body is different. Therefore, when a man dies, when a man dies and when he is burnt, the body is burnt or the body is buried, it is only the body that decays, but the soul is constant. Natvevaham jatunasam natvam neme janadipaha nachayvana bhavishyamaha tatve vayamata param. This says the soul is permanent. Therefore, don't worry. Arjuna, even if you don't fight, you are going to die one day. Bhishmacharya is going to die one day. Therefore, you have to do your duty. For which Arjuna says, I know that the soul is eternal. It has no beginning. Anadinitya, I am completely understand. Then the 13th sloka says, Dehi nityam avadyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata. Dehi means a man having a body. This is the criticism of atheist school, because according to atheism, they don't believe that there is a soul beyond the body. Basmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kutaha tasmat rinam kirtva gritam pibet is the motto of Charvaka or atheist. They don't believe. Therefore, there is nothing like soul beyond the body. When the body is burnt, therefore again it is not going to come. Therefore, whatever you want to do, whether right or wrong, there is no right or wrong anything in there. It is called a landslide really in English. Therefore, whatever you want to have, you can have it. That's all. Is the theory. Therefore, Dehi Nityam, are you going to, Arjuna, are you going to suffer that the body is going to decay? Whether you are going to do your duty of waging the war or not, the body is going to one day have perished. Therefore, don't feel sorry. Then for that also Arjuna says, kindly understand, I know that the soul is eternal, the body is not eternal, still I am not going to fight. For which the answer is given in 2:14. If we understand the 2:14 and administer every day, every minute in our life, we can live here peacefully and we can have a peaceful end. We can be in salvation also. Matra Sparshastuk, Arjuna puts a question. Suppose if the war is not there, suppose if I am alive for 10 years and Bhishmacharya is alive for 10 years, then the association or the company for those 10 years, I will be losing. Therefore, I am not going to fight. I am going to go away from this war. Jayasi chet karmanaste. Kindly see 3rd adhyaya, 1st sloka. Matha buddhir janardana tatkim karmani gore mam. Therefore, let me retire and run away from here without doing my duty. For which the Paramatma asks the question, Matra sparshastu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkadaha agamapayano nityaha tantitikshasva bharata. It is in Sanskrit, it is called, how it should be read. Matra sparshastu kaunteya si avagnya suchakaha. Kakuswara it is called in Sanskrit. Avagnya suchakaha, phinaswaraha, swardena pramanyam. If you want a translation in English, do you mean to say that our eyes coming into contact with an object is only the reason for pleasure, happiness or sorrow? No, no is the answer. But it is due to, you can see, I can give hundreds of examples for you, because one small example I will give you. Suppose we go in car and we see a beggar child, he is crying for food. We don't even care. We drive our car and come. Suppose if the same child, here also we see a child crying for food, we don't have anything attachment at all. But in the house, in our house, suppose if the child cries for food, we take, we cry out and say, we fall out, and we do curse our wife or mother or anything to take care of the child. Why? Here also you see a child crying, there also you see in the child crying. It is only the abhimana or the attachment. That is, it belongs to me. It is I. I means ahankara. The least important word in English is I. The most important word in English is we. We means you have to bring God also into account. You have to bring the presiding deities also into account. Therefore, this ahankara and mamakara is the reason for that. Otherwise, this pleasure and pain is not going to be. You asked how to kill. Katham Bhishmam Sanke Dronam Cha Madhusudana. Only Arjuna asked, if you have got Gita Buddha kind of book, kindly verify that. Therefore, you never bothered about another. There are 11 Achohinis are there. Those people you are ready to kill because you have no attachment over that. This abhimana, attachment, anusandhana, or the intention are the main reason for that. Therefore, if somebody asked that how Gita is relevant to modern times, Gita is relevant at all times for our entire, for the entire humanity, wherever it may be, he may be in wherever yuga, Gita is applicable. Therefore, this soul and body are different. Therefore, if we understand this, suppose if we do anything wrong, suppose if we keep 10,000 rupees in deposit because tomorrow I can take and utilize like that. In the next janma, in the next birth, I have to have the consequences of that. This alertness is there. I feel most of the thing in the world can be solved. We talk about God, we say about God, but we don't understand the correct implications of that. Punarjanma is there. Therefore, what we do now, the consequences will be there in the next janma, or it may take in the same birth. Therefore, Arjuna, Krishna says, therefore, this abhimana you leave, if you have to do your duty. Therefore, that is nishkama karma. Nishkama karma means varna asrama uchita karma. That karma as per you are a warrior. If I want to give you one illustration from military language, shoot the dog at the back is the phrase used in military. You know the reason for that. The military people are guarded with all the food, everything for years. Suppose if there is a war taking place, and if a particular battalion is called to wage the war, suppose if at that time the soldier applies for leave, shoot the dog at the back. You have been carried by the country for all these days so that you can fight for the country. Like that, Arjuna has been born as a Kshatriya. He was a son of Pandu Maharaj. He has been given that Gandhi with Dhanush, etc. Everything is there. And he wants to run away means it is not proper. You have to do your duty. What says Nishkama Karma. Therefore, Nishkama Karma means never bothered about the result. Never bothered about the pada. Therefore, you have to do your duty. Karmanyevadhikaraste Mahaleshu Kadachana. If you want to talk about jurisdiction, the jurisdiction of giving phala, the fruit or the result is in the hands of the God. Therefore, the duty we have to do. Therefore, if we do our duty, God will reward us definitely. That is what the central teaching, Nishkama Karma, that is without aspiring for the fruit. Suppose I am a lawyer for the last 50 years. I never bothered about when a brief comes. I never bothered about whether the person going to give me fees or not. We have to study the case. We have to understand the law and argue on duty over duty. Then the phala will be automatically, it will come. Therefore, this point has been very, very important. That is what in many speeches I have given, in all the books I have written. Therefore, and one before I conclude, in order to get the entire thought of Vedanta, infinite Vedas, and also this Mahabharata consisting of 60 lakhs of granthas, the whole thing is condensed by Lord Krishna in 5 slokas in the 15th chapter. I request here the devoted audience to kindly concentrate for 2 minutes every day and recite these 5 slokas. I have written a small book over that, Heart of Bhagavad Gita, by explaining about these 5 slokas, how it tells the entire infinite Vedas in it. That is in Purana Purushottama Yoga, those 5 slokas, 16 to 20, Dvamivo Purusha Loke, it will start. Therefore, how Lord is grateful, He is merciful towards us. He knows that we have to live in the competitive world. We may not have time. First of all, our span of life itself is very small, and also to devote time for that is still small. And if there is a guru, there is no shishya. If there is a shishya, there is no guru. Understanding all our difficulties, the 15th chapter that is called Purana Purushottama Yoga, sloka 16 to 20. If you recite those 5 slokas, I will tell you the pala, the fruit for that. God says, I will take it for granted that you have recited the entire 20 slokas. If you recite the entire 20 slokas, I will take it as granted that you have recited 700 slokas of Bhagavad Gita. If 700 slokas of Bhagavad Gita is recited, I will take it for granted that you have recited entire with devotion, the entire Bharata of 1 lakh granthas. Therefore, these 5 slokas recitation will take less than a minute, and it gives the heart, it gives the essence of the entire Vedanta. Therefore, I request all of you to kindly see that it is recited every day, and for that there is no restriction at all. You can recite while going in the aeroplane or in the bus or in your car or etc. at any time, or while you are taking bed any time. Dvamivo Purusha Loke Characha Charecha. I am not repeating the entire 5 slokas. It is very much there about that elucidation, Heart of Bhagavad Gita. I have written a book that is, by God's grace, it was my 125th book I have written. There you can see elaborate on those lines. And I am very glad that an opportunity has been given, because this Ekadashi, 25th, is the day where this Gita Upadesha was done by Lord Krishna about 5,000 years back. One thing we have to very correctly understand, Krishna only preached Gita to Arjuna, but the written by the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata was written by another Rupa of God called Vedavyasa. Vedavyasa had written the Bhagavad Gita very much before Krishna Avatara. Krishna Avatara Purum Yashtyagre Vyasaha Sriyapati. Santanu Maharaj is Lord Varuna. Lord Varuna has not come down from heavens. Even before Varuna has come down from heaven, this Bhagavad Gita Mahabharata was completed. That is, you have to Santanu Maharaj, then his 2 sons, then this Dhritarashtra and Panduraja, then Pandavas, then you have to get Arjuna, then Abhimanyu, etc. And Abhimanyu, then Parikshit Maharaj, up to 6th generation he has written, and Mahabharata was completed. And in another Rupa he preached. Therefore, this is a very, very important document, and many foreigners have read this. And once more I am repeating this William Humboldt German critic quotation. Gita is the most beautiful, perhaps the only true philosophical song existing in any language known in the world. This was written some few hundred years back by the great critic. I thank you for having given me this opportunity to speak few words about this great Magna Carta of the world, the universal philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Professor Madhusudan will be happy to answer them.
So I think, Shushrut, we are all kind of spellbound by this 25 minutes of key essence of Bhagavad Gita as to what we need to do, about your duty, about how to run a detached life, and how to understand what our own constitutional position is. Those are the three key messages that I got from TSR's lecture this morning. I think it's a whole lifelong of practice that we need to do. I think the theory sounds straightforward and easy, but the practice of this, my God, this probably will take millions of births for us to achieve that level of perfection. But at least we need to start somewhere, and that is the message. And if some of us start today, you're not going to lose anything, because we'll catch it up in our next birth where we left, and we're going to carry on with that. That's what I was wanting to just, my own understanding of TSR's lecture.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Madhu. Moving on, we recently had Purushottama Masa, or the Adhik Masa, and we commenced discussions on chapter 15 in our group. At that point, Madhusudanji had asked us to learn this chapter, and I don't know how many of you have actually managed it, but we indeed have 4 volunteers from all 3 countries who will be chanting 5 shlokas each from chapter 15. So as we have heard, chapter 15 is the quintessence of the Vedas, so very important that we know this. We have Veena Kankanwadi from London, who is a computer science engineer. She's going to start off doing shlokas 1 to 5. Then we have Padmaja Badrinath from Bangalore. She is the president of Inner Wheel, a charity organization. She's going to do shlokas 6 to 10. Then we have Sheila Paiji, a very ardent follower of Madhuji and a very active participant on Sahiti. She will chant shlokas 11 to 15. And finally, Sujit Kankanwadi from California gets the prime position, 16 to 20. He is a chartered accountant from California, and he's also been a very active participant on Sahiti. So I would request the participants to follow on from each other without any interruption from me. So just pick up the cue, and we will run through the 20 shlokas. So I hope all the participants are ready, and over to you, Veena.
Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Atha Panchadashodhyayah Purana Purushottama Yogah. Shri Bhagavanuvāca Urdhvamūlamadashākham Ashvatham Prahuravyayam Chandamsi Yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavita Adhaschordhvam Prasrutastasya Shakhaha Gunapravruddha Vishayapravalaha Adhascha Mulānyanusantatani Karmanubandhini Manushaloke Narupamasseha tathopalabhyate Nanto na chadir na cha sampratishtha Ashvathamenam suvirudha moolam Asanga shastrena dhrudena chitva Tatah param tatparimargitavyam Yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuyah Tameva chadyam purusham prapadde Yatah pravruttih prasruta purani Nirmana mohajita sangadoshaha Adhyatma nitya vinirutta kamaha Dvandvair vimukta sukha dukkha sanyaihi Gacchantya mudah padamavyayam tata
Na tad bhasayate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha Yat gatvana nivartante tad dhama paramam mama ममैवांशो जीवलोके जीवभूतः सनातनः मनःषष्ठानीन्द्रियाणि प्रकृतिस्थानि कर्षति शरीरं यतवाप्नोति यश्चाप्युत्क्रामतीश्वरः गृहीत्वैतानि संयाति वायुर्गन्धानि वाशयात् श्रोत्रं चक्षुः स्पर्शनं च रसनं घ्राणमेव च अधिष्ठाय मनश्चायं विषयानुपसेवते उत्क्रामन्तं स्थितं वापि पुञ्जानां वा गुणान्वितं विमूढानानुपश्यन्ति पश्यन्ति ज्ञानचक्षुषः
यतन्तो योगिनश्चैनं पश्यन्त्यात्मन्यवस्थितं यतन्तोऽप्यकृतात्मानो नैनं पश्यन्त्यचेतसः यदादित्यगतं तेजं जगद्भासयतेऽखिलं यच्चन्द्रमसि यच्चाग्नौ तत्तेजो विद्धि मामकम् गामाविश्य च भूतानि धारायाम्यहमोजसा पुष्णामि चौषधी सर्वा सोमो भूत्वा रसात्मकः अहं वैश्वानरो भूत्वा प्राणिनां देहमाश्रितः प्राणापानसमायुक्तः पचाम्यन्नं चतुर्विधम् सर्वस्य चाहं हृदि सन्निविष्टो मत्त स्मृतिज्ञानमापोहनं च वेदैश्च सर्वैरहमेव वेद्यो वेदान्तकृत् वेदविदैव चाहम्
द्वाविमौ पुरुषौ लोके क्षरश्चाक्षर एव च क्षरः सर्वाणि भूतानि कूटस्थोऽक्षर उच्यते उत्तमः पुरुषस्त्वन्यः परमात्मेत्युदावृतः यो लोकत्रयमाविश्य बिभर्तव्यय ईश्वरः यस्मात् क्षरमतीतोऽहम् अक्षरादपि चोत्तमः अतोऽस्मि लोके वेदे च प्रतितः पुरुषोत्तमः यो मामेवमसम्मूढो जानाति पुरुषोत्तमं स सर्वविद् भजति मां सर्वभावेन भारत इति गुह्यतमं शास्त्रम् इदमुक्तं मया नघ एतद् बुद्ध्वा बुद्धिमान् स्यात् कृतकृत्यश्च भारत ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुन संवादे पुराणपुरुषोत्तमयोगो नाम पंचदशोऽध्यायः हरि ओम तत्सत्.
Thank you all four participants. That was wonderful chanting and great coordination. Thank you very much to all the participants. That was excellent coordination. We now move on to our next session, which is my favorite verse from the Gita. We have got 3 volunteers. The first to go will be Deval Bagalkoteji from Nottingham. She is a consultant psychiatrist and she has chosen chapter 2, verse 7. Next will be Sriramji from Hyderabad in India. He is the head of manufacturing in Reddy's and he has chosen chapter 8, verse 14. And finally, we have Harish from New Jersey in USA. He is a computer science engineer and he has chosen chapter 12, verse 16. So once again, if the participants could follow one another, please, without any interruption from me, we look forward to hearing your views. So Deval, you're up first. Thank you.
Shrut, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We also can hear you.
Thank
Please
you.
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So namaste. So I'm going to talk on the verse chapter 2:7, and it goes this way. Karpanya dosho upahat swabhavaha pruchhami tvam dharma samudha chetaha yat shreyaha satyani shchitam bruhi tanme shishyasteham shadhi mam tvam prapannam. The literal meaning of this word is Arjuna saying to Krishna that I'm confused, bemused, bewildered about my duty, and have lost composure because of the weakness of a deluded mind. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me clearly what is best for me. I'm your disciple, a soul surrendered to you, unto you. Please instruct me. The reason I like this verse is I think that this is a turning point or a pivotal verse in the Gita. It reflects a change in Arjuna's thinking and awareness that his intellect is clouded. We all know that the prasanga of this verse is in a battlefield. It demonstrates in example what happens at an individual level when the discriminatory power, which is weakened by the vices and bewilders the intelligence with the attachment, love, or material focus in the world. It also depicts a change of equation from Sakha to a guru. So the first picture that we saw when Lord Krishna and Arjuna are blowing their shankha, they are like friends, but Arjuna is surrendering and granting an elevated position to Krishna. All the Vedas are unanimous in telling us that in our spiritual journey, having a guru, a spiritual master, is essential to show us the light and give us the path. And the rest of the Gita is possible only because the change in Arjuna's thinking. It also depicts all the key words that come up, like dharma, shreyas, that the fact that divine grace is essential because Krishna has accepted Arjuna as a shishya, moving on from this, and also talks about the real Purushartha. My favorite word in this verse is the first word, which is karpanya. It has two meanings in my research. One is cowardly, which shows Arjuna's position. So he has been trained as a Kshatriya, and this is his pinnacle. This is his Nobel Prize winning moment, but he can't fight. He is confused and hence cowardly. But another meaning of this word is miserly. A miser is a person who has a lot of wealth, but wants to hoard it rather than distribute it or spend it. We all have been given and have been blessed with a human life. And it is important to realize that this is our true wealth. And the rest of the Gita tells us that we should use this life in order to make spiritual progress so that in future lives, we will accumulate more blessings. And lastly, I have a professional reason to like this verse because it depicts a link to psychotherapy. It is said that Gita is the biggest psychotherapy book ever written. On the lighter side, there is a joke among psychiatrists as to how many psychiatrists it takes to change a light bulb. The answer is one, but the light bulb has to want to change. So this verse depicts that Arjuna gains insight, so there is reflection. Arjuna wants to change, so there is motivation. Arjuna seeks help. There is a realization that he can't do this on his own, that there is a safe space for the space of reflection. So the focus is in the middle of the two warring parties. And in the end of the Gita, Arjuna continues to fight. It is his decision, even though it has been dependent on Krishna. And thank you. Shri Krishna Paramastu. Sorry, I've finished. Sorry, that's...
Sriramji?
Yeah, thank you, Devalji. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Please go ahead.
Okay. Sincere gratitude, very honored to express my views. My favorite verse in Gita is from chapter 8, Akshara Brahma Yoga, and the verse goes like this: Ananya Cheta Satatam Yomam Smarati Nityashaha Tasyaham Sulabha Partha Nitya Yuktasya Yoginah. So the literal meaning goes something like this: those yogis who think of me alone at all times easily reach me. So the word that catches me is easily. And the views that I am sharing with you is what goes on in my mind when I hear lectures on Gita, whatever I learn throughout these few years of mine. So when the Lord says, we have heard this from Madhuji, that yeah, you pray, you think about me, but think about my family too. So how do we reconcile this? The way that I internalize this is when we think about his family, the cosmic forces in the macrocosm, the Brahmanda, it looks very complicated. Wow, so many gods, a huge hierarchy. But what clicked in my mind is the equivalence, the Pindanda, the microcosm, where if I equate all these cosmic forces came directly to my mind is the body that we have, the senses we have, the mind, intellect, all the antakaranas. Therefore, what I understood from this verse is, yeah, you have been taking care of all these, but now shift the gears and think about me. So therefore, it's also amply clear that you cannot think about the Lord without servicing the needs of your senses, the body, the mind, intellect, etc., etc. Having said that, so the shift that is being said here is, you take care of them, you think about me, but you have to be a yogi. So the process that helps us in achieving this shift in our life is clearly articulated. Therefore, I believe this is kind of an Upadesha Vakya. A part of Gita, lot is being told about his greatness, his supremacy. But if I think about Upadesha, what is he expecting us to do? This is one verse where he actually tells us the path is pretty easy. The only thing is you have been servicing the needs of your senses, your body, your various appetites you have. But the shift that you need to do is bring me as a center. And then the process. For the yogis, this is pretty easy. Therefore, you have to be a yogi. What is this? Is also rest of the Gita. The way I understood is the three paths. Jnana is the fundamental. Without knowledge, looks pretty complicated. So the knowledge about what is he talking about, who is he, how are we leading our lives today, and how it should be led. The way I understood about the three paths, the karma, jnana, and bhakti, is kind of three dimensions of our personalities: the body, the emotions, the intellect. The way that we've been leading our lives, I have been leading my life, is I love myself. I do anything and everything to make sure that I grow, I accumulate, I prosper. He just asks us a little bit to shift this. You are part of a bigger life. So expand your ego. The reducing, pulverizing the ego is probably tough, but he says its easy way is to expand significantly, expand yourself to the entire world. Therefore, the karma, the bodily actions you actually perform, take care of yourself, but expand it so much so that it becomes a sacrifice in itself for the whole world. Similarly, the love, affection that you have for yourself, your limited relations that you have around, expand that. Therefore, the bhakti automatically flows in. If you think about this, yeah, it looks pretty good, pretty inspirational. But since I'm shifting the focus about I, me, myself to the world and other, is there anything that I may lose out? Somewhere in other parts of Gita, there is significant assurance that's given. 3 of the verses that inspired me is Name Bhakta Pranashyati, he says in 9th chapter. Yogakshemam Bahamyaham, he again says in 9th. Somewhere in 6th, he says Durgatim Tata Gacchati. So this entire process of expanding one's own self comes also with a significant guarantee from the Lord. Therefore, I felt pretty inspired by this verse. That's my view. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hari Om Shri Krishna Nama. This is Harish, and I think Sri Ramji did a perfect setup for talking about bhakti, because he did talk about how a lot of the shlokas, leading up to this, is going to inspire this concept of bhakti. So one of the favorite shlokas that resonates with me, in particular, it's from chapter 12, which also happens to be one of my favorite chapters, is the shloka on expectations. So it goes like this: Anapeksha shuchir dakshaha udasino gatavyataha sarvarambha parityagi yomad bhaktas same priyaha. So leading up to this, just a very brief context is that Krishna has taught Arjuna about, as TSRG said earlier, about Nishkama Karma, his Mahima, his Vibhuti. He has even blessed Arjuna with Vishwarupa Darshana. But it's interesting when you flip to this chapter, Arjuna's first question is, he looks, it's almost like he has all the answers, and then he is looking at, well, what do you think I should follow? Is it about the unmanifest, the avyakta tattva? Is it the akshara, worship that I need to do, or should I worship the form of Krishna? So one thing that is interesting is that even though he had such a beautiful spiritual experience with Vishwarupa Darshana, the state does not stay permanently, and somehow your old samskaras, will try to drag you back, and your mind, continues to work on you. And this is where the bhakti point really helps, because it actually helps you orient yourself and stay connected with single-pointed devotion to Krishna. Now, Krishna does describe in this chapter many paths that he can take. He talks about how he can fix his mind on Krishna, practice yoga, surrender your action, surrender the fruits of your action. And then what he also starts to describe is what are some of the attributes of the bhakta that is dear to him. And in my view, that's beautiful, because in some ways a lot of the philosophy can be overwhelming, but here he's given a very simple answer on how you can stay connected. Krishna also, I will point out that he does say it is going to be difficult for folks such are embodied like us to be able to connect with something that's intangible. So we do need something tangible to connect with. Not that it's not possible, it is just, he talks about which one is easier versus harder. The very interesting and practical part where he describes about, what's dear to me in this particular sloka is he talks about being the anapeksha, which is being free from expectation, shuchihi, which is purity, daksha, which is having expertise, udasina, neutrality, gatavyatha, being untroubled or free from fear, and sarvarambha parityagi, renouncer of all undertakings. Now, the point of anapeksha, as I mentioned before, is what resonates with me quite a bit. And the reason for that is, wants are endless, right? Because most of us have the wants that are born out of comparison with others, and it leads to a lot of suffering, very difficult to fulfill. And even if it gets fulfilled, you have more wants. On the other hand, we have basic needs that we all are born with, and those we do carry the energy to fulfill them. So as long as our true desires express themselves, we do not feel any desperation to fulfill them because they are truly from your inner being. But on the other hand, the wants are the ones that can be problematic. And this talks about how you can go beyond wants and just focus on the divine and being focused on what your true needs are. The other concept on expectations that I found very enlightening was that in some ways, when you have expectations, you are directly limiting your possibilities because our mind is limited, our senses are limited. So when you use the limited mind and limited senses to create expectations, in some ways, your benchmark itself is completely off. And that can be limiting. So if you kind of break that away and take out the relationship between your action and your expectation, then that can be extremely liberating because then every small and large action that we do towards Krishna, and there's divine support behind it. And then we can experience that. We experience how well we can do the work. It improves our inner space, and it also greatly enhances the blessings that we get out of it. So, a good story that I'm always told is that if an example is, if I want to get an A grade in my test, and I know I need to study for 3 days, and therefore I put in the 3 days of work so that I can get the A grade. But if I take out the expectation of a grade and just focus on the work and focus on work as the work of Krishna, then what's to say that you can be, top of the class, or top of the university like TSR sir. So that's the thing that really helps you, is that once you disconnect the expectations from your action, your possibilities actually explode. And that kind of feeling is what I believe Krishna is going after. That when such a devotee who has that type of anapeksha bhava in him, the one that has purity. And when we talk about, obviously we take a lot of the external body purity for granted, but when you talk about internal purity, about be it your daily prayers, your mantra, your bhajans, your japa, a company of good people, and even events like this, that's what actually helps develop your inner purity. And then there's other points on having expertise on knowing what the right action is, understanding our scriptures, neutrality, and free from fear. And this is part of another probably 7 or 8 other shlokas where he describes what he sees in a devotee. I think they're all equally powerful. But I will close with the thought that if you start to think about a lot of the philosophies leading up to this, it's very powerful. But in some ways, understanding is not really experiencing, because when we understanding is a phenomenon of the mind. And in some ways, when it's a phenomenon of your mind, it's a byproduct of ego, and it gets colored by your mind and ego. But it's always difficulty for intellectuals to kind of comprehend this, because they have to shed the ego in order to be able to experience this. But on the other hand, bhakti yoga and some of these things that we look at in chapter 12 and beyond, it really talks about how you transcend that mind and ego. And Krishna teaches us a beautiful way to do that. And then we express bhakti as gratitude, for what we've experienced from Krishna. He's just asking us to start somewhere. And for me, anapeksha is one point that I'd like to start with, and it can be one of your initial steps. So I'll close with that. Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you to Deval, Sriram and Harish. That was excellent. I really enjoyed this session, hearing thoughts from all three of you. Unfortunately, we have no time for discussion because our program is packed. So we move on. Moving on to our next part, we will exercise some gray cells. The quiz was organized by Neeta, my better half. She is a consultant pediatrician in Leicester. She did send out 9 questions on the WhatsApp group, and I'm sure all of you have scoured the Gita or Google to get the answers. Quite a few have sent in their answers, so we will run through the answers briefly. And then we will move on to the next set of 9 questions to complete the 18 questions. When we come to the live part of the questions, I would request you to please go to the participant or the chat tab and raise your hand virtually so that we can pick out everyone in turn so that we can get the answers. And also you can type your answers on chat so that we can see the answers. I don't think there will be any controversy, but if there is any, then Madhusudanji will be the adjudicator. So the stage is yours, Neeta.
Hello, Hari Om. Thank you, and thank you, Madhuji, for this opportunity. I really enjoyed writing these questions, and I hope that everyone who has participated or sent these answers have also enjoyed finding the answers. Right, so first thing I want to mention is it's not a competition, it's more of another way of learning. So total of 18 questions, and Madhuji had already explained the importance of number 18 in Bhagavad Gita, number of chapters, etc. And I would also like to, first we will go through the homework answers. And I'd like to thank all those people who have sent. Let me just list quickly. Raghu, Harish, Ajit and Radhika, Veena Kankanwadi, Sriram, Deval, Prachi, Rishikesh and Sujit. Thank you for sending your answers. You'll all know what, who has done, correct, who has answered them correctly when I go through these answers. The other thing I want to mention is, yeah, Madhu?
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, that's...
No, Madhu's mom also sent answers. You didn't.
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, Madhu's mom has also sent. And people have mentioned that it was a family exercise. That is really amazing. That's very good that, Harish, I can see you smiling. I think it was a good family exercise, and I'm really pleased that the whole family got involved in this. That is amazing. And the next 9 questions, when I come to that live one, we'll go through. So let's go through the answers. If you've got your answers with you, just go through them, tick right and wrong and mark it yourself. So you know, as I said, it's not a competition, it's for yourself to improve. Okay, so here we go. So yeah. First answer is number 41, which TSR uncle also mentioned in his talk. 41 verses said by Sanjay. The most common chandas or the poetic meter is Anushtup, but the next one is Trishtup. Now the important part of Trishtup is it is used to highlight important points in Bhagavad Gita. And that is why you see it more in chapter 15 and chapter 11. A lot of verses in chapter 11 are in Trishtup, okay? And the other answer was 44, or 11 into 4. Okay? Next one is, what's the meaning of word Rishikesha? Rishikesha is another name for lots of names, Krishna's names in Bhagavad Gita. Other names are Keshava, Govind, Madhusudan, Achyuta, etc. The Lord of all senses. And it also compared to whose hair or consists of rays of sun and moon, which gives us joy. So obviously, when it is sunny, we're all very happy, aren't we? And it's the 47th name in Vishnu Sahasranam. I think most of you would have got this right, matching the name of the conch to the person it belongs to. Okay, so that's the...
Bonus point.
Right. One more thing I want to mention here is about the bonus point. Why did they blow conch shell in that order? The order, mainly I'm talking about why Arjuna before Bhima. Okay. Now, I won't give the answer here because it's just that I want you to do some research. The clue is look at Sri Hanuman or the story. What's the link between Hanuman and this and Mahabharata and this war? Okay, most of you got this right. Which shloka is related to this image? It's the Padma Patra Vivambhasa, chapter 5, number 10. Brahmanya dhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipyate na sapapena Padma Patra Vivambhasa. So that example, I have that highlighted in green color. That's the Padma Patra. Which two shlokas use the analogy shown in this picture? The picture is showing rivers joining the ocean, the sea. So again, most of you got it right, 270 and 1128. So, Apuryamana Machala Pratishtam, Samudramapa Pravishanti Yadvat, Tadvat Kamayam Pravishanti Sarve, Sashanti Mapnoti Nakama Kami. And the second one is Yatha Nadinam Bahavombu Vegaha. So that is the reverse part. Samudra Meva Bhimukhad Dravanti, Tatha Tavami Navadalo Kavira, Vishanti Vaktran Yabhijat Jwalanti. Okay. Question 6. Which shloka is related to this picture? It's a lamp. I did ask for one verse, so if you have done that, that's good. But I realized there was an alternate answer. So first one is 6:19. Yatha Deepo Nivatastho Nengate Sopamamrita. It's like a lamp in a windless place. Yogino Yatachittasya Yunjato Yogana Matmanaha. And the second possible answer is 10:11, which also mentions Deepa. Okay, which Gita shloka and the meaning? So first one was chapter 3:30, which talks about Nishkama Karma. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyayatma chetasa nirashir nirmamo bhutva yudhyasva vigata jwaraha. And question 8, it's quite a famous one, chapter 6, number 5. Uddhared atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva hyatmano bandhu Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha. And question 9, chapter 12, 17. I think Harish would know this because it's just immediately after his one. 12:17. Yona Harshati na dveshti, na shochati na kankshati, shubha shubha parityagi, bhakti manya same priya. Okay, so you've all marked your own quiz answers. So hope you've got those answers there. So should we move on to today's quiz? Okay. So again, there'll be 9 more questions to make a total of 18. And these questions are related to numbers in Bhagavad Gita. So we'll start from 9 and work our way downwards to 1. So 9, 8, 7 in that order. So we'll go down that way. And we'll have 30 seconds to think about the question. And you'll have a little music playing at that time. And 1 minute to answer. And after that, I will reveal the answer. Okay. And we'll all be given karma points or negative, take away your karma points, bad karma points for each question, just like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire type of one. And it's also like catchphrase. I don't know if you've seen catchphrase on television. You'll be shown a cartoon type of thing and then you identify what it is. So something similar. So let's play this game. First one is number 9 for taking away 10 karma points. So which chapter does this relate to and verse number and what are the 9 gates?
9th chapter. What are the 9 gates?
wants to answer? Anyone? I can't see.
Harish did something.
Harish, did you put your hand up?
No. I just know that, I think it's, I don't know the shloka, sorry.
Yeah, but any about the chapter, you can at least mention the chapter.
I think it's chapter 5 or 6, might be 5.
Is it
Navadvar.
chapter 5, 13?
Yeah, and what are the 9 gates?
Oh, again, the
nine gates are the 2 eyes, 2 nose, the mouth, the well, the anus, the top of your head where the fontanelle is.
Those are 10 and 11. The Nabi is the 11.
Yeah.
Okay,
and the breath, mouth, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, we're nearly there. That's correct. So 5th chapter was correct. 13th verse. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi. Navadware. So 9 doors. Navadware pure dehi. So what Deval was mentioning was 11, 10, and 11. So there you can see a picture of all the doors that have been mentioned. So basically it means human body. Okay, so that's what we're talking about, Navadware. Okay, ready for next question, number 8. Okay, again, a very common one that's used. So, right, let's go to number 8. Right, so 30 seconds to think about this.
Sanjari, Govardhana Giridhari, Gokula Sanjari, Gokula Sanjari, Tulasi Maladari, Gokula Sanjari, Tulasi Maladari, Shama Sundara Madana Mohana Vrindavana Vihari, Shama Sundara Madana Mohana Vrindavana Vihari, Vrindavana Vihari, Govardhana Giridhari, Vrindavana Vihari, Govardhana Giridhari, Govardhana Giridhari, Gokula Sanjari, Govardhana Giridhari, Gokula Sanjari, Gokula Sanjari, Tulasi Maladari, Gokula Sanjari, Tulasi Maladari, Shama Sundara Madana Mohana Vrindavana Vihari.
That's brilliant, Adarsh. It was wonderful to hear, and sort of many congratulations to you. Raghu, if you can start now, please.
Vanamali Vasudeva Manamokana Radharamana Vanamali Vasudeva Manamokana Radharamana Shashivadana Sarasi Janayana Jaganmokana Radharamana Shashivadana Sarasi Janayana Jaganmokana Radharamana Vanamali Vasudeva Palkadali Palli Konda Parandama Radharamana Palkadali Palli Konda Parandama Radharamana Bhattargalil Kurai Tirkum Sriranga Radharamana Bhattargalil Kurai Tirkum Sriranga Radharamana Vanamali Vasudeva Manamokana Radharamana Vanamali Vasudeva Manamokana Radharamana Shashivadana Sarasi Janayana Jaganmokana Radharamana Vennayundamayavane கண்ணா நீராதாரமண மென்மையுண்டமாயவனே கண்ணா நீராதாரமண வேண்டுவரம் தந்திடுவார் ஸ்ரீரங்கராதாரமண வேண்டுவரம் தந்திடுவார் ஸ்ரீரங்கராதாரமண வனவாலி வாசுதேவா மனமோகன ராதாரமண வனமாலி வாசுதேவா மனமோகன ராதாரமண ಶಶಿವದನ ಸರಸಿಜ ನಯನ ಜಗನ್ಮೋಹನ ರಾಧಾರಮಣ ವನಮಾಲಿ ವಾಸುದೇವ.
Raghu, thanks very much. Excellent voice. I never knew you had such a wonderful voice, actually. Thank you very much. And next is, Krishna Ashtakam to be chanted by Arjun Srinivasan, who happens to be my son.
Namaste, Hare Krishna. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramaddanam Devaki Paramanandam Shtam Vande Jagatguram Atasi Pushpa Sangasam Haranu Purashobitam Ratna Kankana Keyuram Krishnam Vande Jagatguram Kutilalak Samyuktam Purna Chandra Nibananam Vilasat Kundala Taram Devam Krishnam Vande Jagatguram Mandara Gandha Samyuktam Charuhasam Chatutbhujam Parhi Pinjaba Churangam Krishnam Vande Jagatguram Utpulla Padma Patrasham Neela Jimuta Sannibam Yadavanam Chiroratnam Krishnam Vande Jagatguram Rukmini Keli Samyuktam Pitambara Shushobitam Avapta Tulasi Gandham Krishnam Vande Jagatguram Gopikanam Kujatwantam Kunkumankita Vakshasam Sriniketam Maheshvasam Krishnam Vande Jagatguram Shrivasangam Mahoraskam Vanamala Virajitam Changu Chakra Taram Devam Krishnam Vande Jagatguram Krishnashtagam idam punyam prada ruddaya padet koti janmam kritam papam smaranena vinashyati. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks Arjun. That was good. We have the final Aarti now. It is a Bhagavad Gita Aarti. Chitra sent. She has sent it to everybody, so you can also chant. Of course, Chitra will chant here. You can mute and chant. And so I think you probably, I don't know who is it, Suresh Kankanwadi or Veena Kankanwadi, you said about people to be prepared with something for the Aarti.
Yeah, we did send it out so that everyone should have a copy of Bhagavad Gita and a lamp so that they can do the Aarti.
Okay, so as all people ready with that? Okay, so we'll start. Chitra will start now. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Om Jaya Bhagavad Gita Maya Jaya Bhagavad Gita Hariya Kamala Viharini Hariya Kamala Viharini Sundara Supanite Om Jaya Bhagavad Gita Karma Sumarma Prakashini Kama Shakti Hara Maya Kama Shakti Hara Tattva Jnana Vikashini Tattva Jnana Vikashini Vidya Brahma Para Om Jaya Bhagavad Gita Nikshchala Bhakti Vidayini Nirmala Malahari Maya Nirmala Malahari Sharana Rahasya Pradayini Sharana Rahasya Pradayini Sab Vidhi Sukhkari Om Jaya Bhagavad Gita रागद्वेषविधारिणि कारिणि मोद सदा मयकारिणि मोद सदा भवभयहारिणि तारिणि भवभयहारिणि तारिणि परमानन्दप्रदा ॐ जय भगवद्गीते आसुरभावविनाशिनि नाशिनि तमरजनी मायनाशिनि तमरजनी दैवी सद्गुणदायिनि हरिरसिका सजनी ॐ जय भगवद्गीते समता त्याग सिखावनी हरिमुख की बानी माया हरिमुख की बानी सकल शास्त्र की स्वामिनी सकल शास्त्र की स्वामिनी श्रुतियों की रानी ओम जय भगवद्गीते दया सुधा बरसाविनी मातृ कृपा की जय माया मातृ कृपा की जय हरिपद प्रेम दान कर हरिपद प्रेम दान कर अपनों कर लीजय ओम जय भगवद्गीते थैंक यू
Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks, Chitra. That was like, you know, we come to the end of the program now. We got the vote of thanks to be, I'm going to say that. If anybody wants to make any comments, about this program today, you can just unmute and say that now before we finish.
In one day,
Hello.
the Lord.
Go on, please.
Yeah, namaskara. My name is Balaji Rao. I am a Shishya of Sri Guru Gadu Sri T.S. Raghavendran. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go on.
Yeah. I would first thank Madhusudan because he gave a very good introduction of our Guru. And it was very nice for me to join this program it was a wonderful treat. In respect of Bhagavad Gita, and especially to listen to the golden words of our Guru. You can see that because I have been with him for almost like 25 years, and the service he does, I would say that he lives the message preached by Lord Krishna. That's what I would say, because I had the fortune of personally being close to him. And he has guided me right from, when I was in college to now and henceforth. So I would just like to share that, it is amazing that he has given all this wisdom, which has come from Bhagavad Gita in his books. And I would be very happy if anybody is interested, they can reach out to me. I am in Houston in Texas. So, and my brother who is in India, his name is Rajesh. So we have put the website for jnanasampath.in, which Madhusudan mentioned. So anybody interested in getting his books, please let us know. And I think what I like about what, as Madhusudan rightly pointed, that, the humility with which our Guru comes to us. He goes to the level of wherever we are. So it's not like, he's one of the best scholars and all the Mathadipatis have, given him awards and everything. But when he talks to you, he understands where you are and he lifts you up from there and takes you further. So I think that's a great quality which we should be fortunate that we have him amongst us. And I would request all the people to take advantage of that. And please, I think Madhusudan, if you have any further points, please add to it. But I think this was a very interactive session. And I really enjoyed it. Like, so many quizzes and even small kids. I was amazed, like, the participation and the way they have come up with the answers. So thank you very much, and namaskaram to all of you. Harish.
Okay, thank you, Balaji.
I'm Uma Prakash. I'm very proud to say that I'm Dr. Madhusudan's mother-in-law and Jamuna's mother. I'm watching this from Bangalore, India. I didn't feel that this program was going on in UK and the US. I thought this is very much going on in India. It had such a local essence in it. And I was very happy to watch the whole thing. May Lord Krishna bless all of you. God bless you all. Thank you.
Aunty. Yeah, thank you. That was good way before as well. And it's good to see you again. Thanks, Balaji Rao. I think that was a very good summary of your guru. And I think it was, this is the first time we are all listening to him. And it was truly enlightening. And we would like to listen to him more. And also, we'll be happy to read his books. Madhu, one doubt, its name starts with Tamarabarni. Is it anything to do with the Tirunelveli, the Tamarabarni river in the Tirunelveli region?
Yes, correct, yes.
Is he from Tirunelveli originally?
Not from Tirunelveli, as far as I know. He's from Coimbatore, but the family ancestry is from that area.
Yeah, that's what I saw when you said
Tamarabarni river.
Yeah. So I think.
So Sudarshan, can I say a few words? My own feeling today was this was such a collective performance. It was a real teamwork. And the teamwork over the last 10 to 14 days really meant that most of us were able to learn a lot of things together. So that was very, very enlightening. That I really enjoyed over the last 10 days trying to organize. Thanks to Neeta and Shushrut and Suresh Kankanwadi, they all made a lot of effort. So it was a lot of fun. It was like having a party at home and in a very nice way. So that we enjoyed that. And having external speakers is really inspiring, I think. So as if you remember, for our inauguration, we had Professor P.R. Mukund from Virginia, who did the plenary session for us. So now we have TSR. So I think we need to keep going with this tradition to expose these great giants who are there in different parts of the world, and to inform people that these great souls exist out there and we need to celebrate and recognize them. Yeah, so I think that is the key thing that we should do from this organization. I think we need to move this forwards. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely, Madhu. I think we'll do whatever you think is the best. We'll take it forward and we'll achieve it. And you've been a great inspiration for this. And I think your lectures are sort of carrying us forward, and the knowledge and, we know that lectures are quite a high quality, and many times, we sort of struggle, but I think we all want to come every week because it is something to do with our heritage, and we want to make efforts to learn, and we want to at least sort of, learn 1 by 1 billionth of whatever has been sort of said in our all the Itihasa and everything. The only thing is, I want to say, I said it before, excellent effort by the team. Particularly the quiz was excellent. So much of effort has gone into that. And, I think maybe you need to preserve this quiz rather than sort of deleting it for the future. I think in any other events, we can use it. And I don't know the name of the child who was chanting the Gita, Harish's son. He was sort of, I think, amazing. He probably is a prodigy. So we want to hear more from him, and we can see him growing into like a scholar like Madhu in future. So I think anybody else wants to make any feedback? Balaji Rao's feedback was very useful, like, from somebody who attended the event today. Anybody else wants to give a feedback? That will be a...
Madhu, hello, Sudarshan.
Yeah, go on, Uncle, please.
Hello. I must thank you and as well as Madhusudan for having such an excellent evening today. I felt so great, and I was really fortunate to listen to TRS from Coimbatore. I think it's the best we could probably get Gita Upadesh in our lifetime. And we are very, it's almost like hearing from, as he said, from Lord Krishna himself. We are very fortunate on this auspicious day to hear people like him. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Uncle. Anybody else wants to give any feedback before we finish? Okay. Thanks everybody for attending. This is even though it's a holiday time, it's a Sunday evening here in UK. and still so many people are, have come. About 40 people attended in total. I know people from India has come, people from America has come as well. And we are very grateful to all of you. And as you know, we run this YouTube channel, and all the recordings will be there in the YouTube channel whenever you can watch it at your convenience. So spread the message, and then we'll have more people joining our group, more people listening to the lectures by Madhu. And so we'll take it to the next level. I mean, we have only a few more days to finish in 2020. So in 2021, we'll achieve a lot more, and maybe by next Gita Jayanti celebrations next year, we would have done a lot better, and we will have a much bigger crowd, much bigger feedback to give about all our activities. Thank you very much, and Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Log off now.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Bye.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.